This is Ed in San Diego, and welcome back to Global TV Talk Show. Our very special guest today is author Simon T. Bailey. I'm going to read this. He's a top business keynote speaker and author and peak performance expert. He has been named one of the top 25 people who will help you reach your business and life goals by Success Magazine, joining a list that includes Tony Robbins and Oprah Winfrey. That's wow. So your thing is helping people know themselves and love themselves. Is that right?
That's correct, and truly perform at the highest way and possible way they can in any setting.
Now, this is something that I was reading your background, your purpose in life. I'm reading this is to help people discover their own brilliance through motivational speeches, direct one-on-one success coaching. And whoever wrote this says there are 9 personal and professional development books that you've done. You're a national TV talker, and a brilliance of personal development and rebirth, if you will, from your own life experiences. I'm going to stop talking, Dr. Bailey. Please tell us more about that.
Well, what I discovered just in my own journey is that it's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. And for a long time, I focused on what was missing, what was wrong, what was the problem, instead of really identifying everything I needed to succeed was inside of me. That's number one. Number two, I recognized that if I was going to thrive in life and business, I need to be in an environment where I was really celebrated for the brilliance that I had instead of tolerated for just merely existing. And so when I had that epiphany, I wondered if others were struggling with the same issue, and I discovered the answer was yes. People were struggling to really find their place and find their environment, because when you find your environment, that's when you take off and soar.
So, okay, these are big words. When you find your environment, that means what? When you find inner peace?
The environment within, yes. So inner peace to love the skin you're in, number one. Number two, finding that external environment where the relationships you have contribute to you being a good human being. And then number three, you're then able to pay it forward because you move beyond yourself to say, who else can I help become a better human being as I am evolving to being a better person?
So your background, I was reading, is rags to riches, and from uh, I guess being unhappy and then realizing your inner strengths and then um, rebirth.
Yeah, my story is I was lost, I was stuck, and I wanted to give up, literally. And through just a series of doing work on myself, I found a path to say, wait a minute, everyone has brilliance in them. And if they get on the path to finding whatever that brilliance is, some call it strength, some call it gifts, some call it passion, I call it brilliance. And what you begin to discover is your brilliance is ignited in an environment that invites you to be the best person that you can be.
So the environment that you found yourself in was early on. I was reading that
Yes.
you overcame drifting, drifting around and not having the focus that you obviously have now.
Hmm.
But there was a transition there. Was there somebody? I know the Lord above helped, but
Sure. Sure.
what about, was there one person who you look back on was like instrumental to you having that light go on?
Yeah, for me, number of people, one being a guy named Dr. Mark Sharana, who's been in my life for 25 years. He said to me, you weren't born to fit in, you were born to be brilliant. And I said to him, how can you say that? You're a white man. And he said, you're stuck in your mind and your body thinking the pigmentation of your skin limits your ability to succeed. But I'm telling you, you weren't born to fit in, you were born to be brilliant. And when he said it, he was the first person that really ever told me that I was brilliant, and it unlocked something in me.
But did he tell
And
you why and how?
yeah, he told me why, because he had been observing me from afar and up close. And he said, "You have something to bring to the world. Don't get stuck." And he just really started affirming me and encouraging me and pushing me to become more than I had been at that time. And he's still in my life today, and still is someone that I go to look for advice and mentorship.
So there was a time when you dropped out of school and then you switched schools during this transition, and you wound up being president of the class and getting scholarships and moving on. Uh, and you had a great career in the hotel hospitality industry, which we'll get into in a minute. But back in the days when there was trouble or misdirection or no direction, um, I had a similar experience, although I don't think as traumatic as what I read about your early days. And there was a football coach who pulled me aside. I didn't play football. I ran track, but I didn't play football. But I was in high school. I started. I had pimples. The girls made fun of me, that kind of thing. And I shouldn't say I'm a broadcaster here, but I wasn't performing, and he pulled me into he took me out of study hall and put me into his room and shut the door and says, "I've been noticing you, and others have too, in the teaching faculty." He says, "You have a lot of skills that you're unable to find and develop." And he knew about the stuttering, and he says, "What's going on at home? There's a problem there." So I described, and he says, "Well, let's take first things first. Let's stop the stuttering." And so he had me tell him about what I do in sports, and like baseball, and like I'm from Boston originally, so the Red Sox. So he says, "Okay, let's look at them." And this is back in Boston area. So he says, "Let's look at the Boston Globe and look at the sports section. And I want you to start reading sports page." And I didn't stutter at all in reading it. He says, "What's that about?" Something like that. And he was a big guy, and I was not big. And he said, "You got to work out in your mind how to pronounce those words that a PR, a BR, just get through that by maybe slurring them or thinking about how Ted Williams would speak in front of a microphone instead of how you speak, or instead of how your dad would speak." And my dad was a stutterer. So, there's all kinds of things going on in my head that I didn't sort out. So anyway, he got me to do that, and we had a weekly session. He was also a math teacher, and I didn't do well in math, and he uh, got me to understand what algebra was and a trick on how to figure out what the equations were, whatever. And it worked. I wound up getting a B in that class. And he then took me through the idea of self-development, right? And feeling more confident. And he says, "You can't do that if you're going to stutter. So you need to run more, run faster, work it out of your system, and eat something different than you've been eating." And anyway, I've read your background just about an hour ago, and I copied and pasted it here. And you did something similar, but I think it was much more dramatic. Your challenge was much more dramatic, total life thing than what I did. But I'm doing the TV talk shows here now, going on 3 years, and I've done 500 and something shows.
Wow.
And this is my therapy. And every so often I get nervous or I get upset or something, and I get into a speech impediment thing again. So I said, whoa, so I can't fall back. And so I'm more mindful of that. And I think you had a similar experience. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so happy to have you as my guest.
Yes, I did. In fact, when I was in high school, my freshman year was a total disaster, failed all of the classes, went out for sports, and basically got cut. My situation was so bad, attempted suicide between my freshman and sophomore year in high school. And it was in my sophomore year where my parents moved me to a new school. And it was that teacher, Miss Rita Lankus, may she forever rest in peace, who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, inspired me. Here I am 35 years later because of a teacher who gave me a hand up, not just a handout. And then from there went on to be class president of my high school after just being there 3 years. But for everyone that's listening to us, I think the key takeaway is that number one, encouragement is oxygen for the soul. If someone can just encourage you, it gives you the impetus to keep going. I'll never forget, a few months ago, I was in Bhutan hiking through the Himalayas with a group, and I had reached a place where I couldn't go on. I was like, I'm quitting. We're 10,000 feet in there. I'm like, this is crazy. And there was a guide with us. And just when I was about to turn around, Ed, I said to him, I said, how far are we away? And he said, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Well, 2.5 hours later, just a little bit more, we make it to the monastery. But the point is, just encouraged me in the moment to realize just a little bit more. So there's someone that's listening to us right now who just needs to know you're so close. You just need to keep going just a little bit more, keep pushing ahead.
Now, when you rose through the ranks in the hospitality industry to being sales director at Walt Disney,
Yes.
that's amazing. That is a really powerful position. Not to celebrate your power, but the accomplishment that all these people with big egos and big wallets put you in that position to teach others.
Yes. It took me a long time to get hired at Disney. Let me just start there. But once I did get the role, once again, it was because someone gave me an opportunity. They used their influence, saw that I had the capability and the competency, but I didn't have the access. And they gave me access to take a job that most people would have never given me that opportunity. And here's the irony of the whole thing. The same man that gave me the job, his name is Larry. He and I just had breakfast a couple of weeks ago, and we were just catching up, and we still keep in contact throughout the year. And I had a chance to say thank you, take a picture with him, and he's retired now, but to let him know how much I appreciate him 25 years ago, just giving me a shot.
Now you're paying it forward, quote unquote, and I see you on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn, so I see you on LinkedIn in these 2-minute, 1-minute things about loving yourself.
Yes.
That's the same kind of thing, right?
Oh, absolutely. And not only loving myself, but also extending a hand to others to make sure other people that are on the LinkedIn platform know about other great people. So trying to find a way to pay it forward and not just focus the spotlight on me, but focus the spotlight on the great work that others are doing in the world.
Now, Dr. Simon T. Bailey, you have a doctorate of science in business administration. That sounds pretty big. What does all that mean? I mean, what did you have to go through to get that PhD?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's just start with It was my third honorary degree that I've received.
Hmm.
That was from Cleary University, a 138-year-old institution in Holland, Michigan, who bestowed that upon me for the global impact that we've had in the world. As you know, we've worked with almost 2,300 organizations in 54 countries, and they have looked at the body of our work, and 3 of our courses on the LinkedIn Learning platform have reached 250,000 students in 100 countries. So because of the global impact of our work that we hear from people from all over the world, they gave me that third honorary degree. So
Wow, that's great. Wow. So the theme of working with all these people is doing what you're doing, right? Talking about what yourself and what it takes for people to overcome.
exactly. I believe when people find their brilliance, they can help others find their brilliance. And if we work together, we can impact a community, and the community impacts the city, and the city impacts the state, and the state impacts the country. So, but it starts with that individual looking at themselves in the mirror, then to say, who can I help next door to me? Who's my neighbor, right? And then once we start there, that's where transformation really begins.
So I see your book. The last interview we did several months ago was focusing on your book. It's right behind you in that,
Yes.
uh, and the picture of you. And
Yes.
it's about the power of women.
Yes. Ignite the power of women in your life.
Okay, tell us about. Pick out your favorite chapter, just sort of open it up and find find a chapter, and then what's so important that you did that chapter?
So the one of the core philosophies that I teach is the essence of your soul. And in this particular chapter, I teach about looking at your spirituality. Spirituality means different things to different people. Understanding health and wellness. How do you take care of yourself, making sure you're taking your meds? Then thinking about your family. My struggle with my family is that I put money before meaning, and I put building a house instead of creating a home. So when you really understand that there's a significant difference, I talked about your career and your business, doing what you love, but loving what you're doing and those that you serve. Uh, Looking at some of the work of David Bach, who wrote The Automatic Millionaire, where he really teaches automate your money. What you don't see, you don't spend. Socially, thinking about who are the people in your life that challenge you. Educationally, are you continuing to grow? Eric Hoffer, a noted philosopher, says in times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, while the unlearned will find themselves beautifully equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. And then emotionally, how are you doing in your emotional well-being? Does everything trigger you? Do you have a way to ensure that you're not suppressing your emotions, but you're releasing your emotions? And then I just give you some recommendations. For instance, don't beat yourself up. Look at the circle of relationships that you have, and then always come back to why me, why now? Why am I here right now? And so this is kind of like the core philosophy that I taught in this book, really to help men thinking about when they come into right relationship with themselves, then they can show up in right relationships with the women in their life.
So you have 2 kids?
I actually 4 blended family, 3 daughters, 1 son.
Yeah. Okay. Are they listening to you?
No. They
Oh,
have all
because
the
I think
answers.
they know about it already. And
They have all the answers, so we'll just let life. I will let life. My mother used to say, "A hard head creates a soft bottom."
hmm.
Yeah.
So we have the whole year in front of us, and it looks like, economically anyway, that there's not going to be a recession for everybody. Some are going to feel it more. So our audience, as far as I know anyway, according to Google Analytics, is people in a business environment
Mhm.
worldwide, although 70% US. what would be your message today to people who just they were probably making 80,000 or more at a tech company and they received a pink slip? And the answer for them, I think, is to go to a company that's not a tech company and bring their skills and prove that they're worth that to a smaller, different company. Like I read that Walmart is after the people from Google who got laid off.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, and there's other stores that you wouldn't think would be a place for tech people, but everybody needs tech now.
Absolutely.
It
You
is,
said it.
you
What
need
you,
it.
what you just said, you said it perfectly. Take your portfolio of skills and transfer them to another entity and absolutely slay it, kill it, make it happen. Because what Walmart understands is you've understood how Google thinks, how Google approaches things. They've shaped a person in their technology journey. So, number one, I would assess what are my core skills. Number two, what were my strengths, things that I enjoyed doing. Number three, what were the results that I generated? Was I on a project team that created this product? And if so, what did I learn by being on the team? What were the mistakes that we made? If we had to do it all over again, what would you do differently? I think probably the thing that everyone that's listening to us right now can do is get a journal and write down, and this is something I learned from Brian Tracy, and that is, what did I learn today? What can improve? And what's my next step? And that what can I improve is looking for that little window of opportunity that you can bring to another organization or to a business to help that business improve because of the history and the understanding that you have of what worked and what didn't work. And then the next step is take action. So how can you take action and forge ahead? I will say to everyone that is listening to us, no matter what has happened over the last 3 months with all of the layoffs, think like a slashy. And what I mean by that, I was in
Slashing.
South Africa and I was sitting with a gentleman, and I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm a digital photographer slash, I'm a computer programmer slash, I'm a financial design, a fashion designer slash." And his picture had just been in GQ magazine, and he showed me he had a huge following on Instagram. And when he said it, Ed, the light bulb went off. I said, so many times people think you have to be one dimensional. No, multi-dimensional. Be a slashy. It's okay.
So there's a guy who I know who's been a speaker at my meetings, live and online, mostly online the past 3 years. And he works for Flutter. I'm not going to name his name right now, but he's a very senior guy in the world of HR and talent management, rewards, global HR. Many people call him today Mr. Global HR. So he just the other day was interviewed by somebody else, although he's been a guest on my show several times, but just the other day he was on somebody else's, and he says, well, somebody asked him about the world with respect to the layoffs going on. He said, what's going on here? Why is this happening? First, everybody was quitting because they felt strong, and now so many people are getting laid off. And what about hybrid? What about remote? Back in the office? Where? When? How? And he
Mhm.
says the days of long-term employment are over. Get used to it. Make yourself into being hyper employable. And that's exactly what you
Nice.
just said, right?
That's it. That's
Right.
it. Absolutely. I love that term hyper employable because that means that you can go on a 90-day sprint, 180-day sprint, whatever it takes, because you have a portfolio of skills that are transferable in any environment, any team, any business, because your skills is what's in you. It's what you know. Then you have what Marie Forleo calls figure out ability. You figure it out.
That's a
as you go
personal
along.
vision. That's a personal thing.
Yes. Now, back in the 70s and 80s, we would call that unlocking your inner MacGyver, you know?
The TV guy. Yeah. Right. So,
Yeah.
folks, you need to go to Simon T. Bailey, Bailey, simontbailey.com, and you're going to be enthused as I am. So, I thank you very much for these pearls of wisdom here and being a slasher. That's great. Thank
Yes.
you, Dr. Bailey, for
Thank
being on
you.
Global TV Talk Show. Come
Thank
back
you.
again, please.
Will do.
Thank you. This is Ed signing off. Bye-bye. Thank you.